Tere Joyce, and I right now am watching the Super Jaymze show.
It's your friendly neighborhood Super Jaymze, and I want to thank you guys for tuning in another episode of the Super Jaymze show. And this week, I have my special friend, Tere Joyce. How are you?
I'm doing good.
If you guys don't recognize her, or maybe you're looking at her, you're kind of like, wait a minute, she looks familiar. You've seen her on TV. She was on a TV show, Last Comic Standing, amongst other things. What else have you done in the industry?
Well, mainly Last Comic Standing, but I did Dirty Jokes, the movie.
Yes.
And I also did a show called Homeless, an independent film. My first independent film was in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Okay.
And it's directed by Steven Quesada, who actually ended up being Detective Gomez on Breaking Bad.
Breaking Bad,
yes.
Yes. Knew that name sounded familiar. Detective Gomez.
Hey.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. How did you get started in stand-up comedy?
First of all, okay, all right. I wanted to be an actress.
Okay.
And so that's where, and I had I studied theater. I was a geek about this.
Right.
All right. So I moved to Pasadena, California to go to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts.
Mm-hmm.
And I met this woman, on the street. I was just kind of hanging out, and she goes, oh, you have a lot of life in you. I want to take a picture of you and whatever. And I said, okay, can I take some photos? And I'm like, all right. So, I sat down, and her name is Peggy Pope, and she played the drunk woman in the movie 9 to 5. Okay, and
I've seen 9 to 5.
She told me after, she goes, oh, I was a drunk woman. I go, oh, I know who you are, and she does like some Barney Millers and stuff. She goes, well, you know what? A lot of young people like to hang out at the improvisation on Melrose.
Yeah.
She goes, I'll take you there. So it was the first time I'd seen live stand-up comedy ever. Okay, and this was 1984, and it was like Jay Leno wasn't really like famous. I mean, he was just like the kind of guy that you'd see at the Comedy Store and go, I recognize that guy's face.
He's on a Doritos commercial.
Yeah, he's a Dorito guy. Like he had a leather jacket and everything.
Right.
And Richard Lewis was there. He was like, these guys were these were like Jerry Seinfeld, like was unknown. And I would hang out at the Improv. They have a little bar there. So I was getting recommendations from people, like even my instructors, because I always did comedies. So one night I was at the Improv and I looked up and I go, you know what? I turned to my mom and I go, you know what? I think if I had an act, I could do that. and so I was in this awful play in Burbank called La Turista. It's the director, Sam Shepard. Do you know who he is?
Yes, I know Sam Shepard.
Married to Jessica Lange. I think his plays suck. Okay, they suck. They suck. I don't get them. I'm like, I don't know what this is. And. It was like La Turista. It was stupid. We had dysentery or some shit, And I was like, and I just hated it. I go, I hate this play, And the director was kind of one of those kind of directors that was kind of full of himself, and he owned a little theater, and he was like he wanted to get into your emotions and everything. And we're like, fuck you fucking weirdo. You know what I mean? He's like, I'm not giving you $150 to be in your suck ass play. You don't get to play with my fucking emotions. No, I don't want to read Think and Grow Rich. Fuck off, So I quit. Yeah. I quit. I said, fuck it. I'm not taking this class anymore. I never quit anything like that before.
Right.
And I took it. There was a thing in Dramalog. There's a paper that you get it for the actors who go to in LA. And I'm like, so I looked at it, and it was like Stanley Myron Handelman, a stand-up comedy class, and I took the class. 6 months after that, I was on stage at the Improv, where I originally saw comedians, and I had 6 minutes. My first jokes I ever wrote were dick jokes. Okay,
Can't get enough of dick jokes.
And it was because of the fact that it was really something I really thought about. It really came from me. It's like about how guys like name their penis. Like they go they will come out and they go, he wants you to touch him, and I go like he calls it he, like it was a little person or something, And I go, this is really weird, but it happened to that was the premise of it, you know. Right. 1986 or whatever, like women didn't talk about penises then. Like one time I was even in a show and this woman goes, she said penis. She can't say penis. I'm like, what the hell's wrong with penis? I'm like, who doesn't say penis? But anyway, I did these jokes, and I got off stage, and as I was coming, and I remember being on stage and going, I'm really getting laughs. I'm waiting for the laugh, and then I'm going to the next one. I think I'm having a real set, And I got off, and this elderly woman grabbed my hand, and she goes, I think you're really funny, honey. And I said, oh, okay, and she goes, my name is Sally Mars, and she goes, I'm Lenny Bruce's mother. and Lenny Bruce,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it's like, and Lenny Bruce is not afraid.
Yeah,
It's,
right.
it's the end of the world as we know it. Lenny
Yeah, right.
Bruce, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
And I was talking to her, and she was like, I was the first female comic in 1942,
Yeah.
and but she said something to me, which she goes, well, you're a little bit dirty, honey. She says, but you know what? You have to make that choice. Lenny did or whatever. And I'm thinking, no shit.
Yeah,
Like
right.
you're looking at the whole symbolism of his fight for free speech.
Right.
And I just kind of feel like before, when I first started stand up, right? It was just about being funny,
Right.
you just like standing there and doing your first material or doing your first 3 minutes or
Right.
whatever that is. And being consistent, because you have it's different to play in LA than it is to play in Arkansas.
Right.
And so you're dealing with, and especially now in the world, because you're dealing with like all kinds of like demographics of people
Right.
everywhere, and you are who you are, and the gender that you are, and the race that you are, and you have the viewpoint that you do, and the thing that you want to do is to be able to capture and connect with as many people as you can,
Right.
with the material that you have, with what you're prepared to do, with whatever you're going, and that's when the magic happens.
Right.
As I've matured as a comedian, I have grown to have a lot more respect for them, because I think the art form in itself allows us to tell the truth. And it
Yes.
can be, and really, if you look at comics, they're really, in a way, socially engineering our society. I mean, more people are, going to listen to Bill Maher
Yeah.
or,
Yes.
Jon Stewart to get the news.
Exactly. That's what they're doing
And
these
I
days.
still don't think that's really the news either. You know what I mean? I mean, like, you think you're getting the news, but you're not really getting
SNL has their own news.
but it's a very powerful thing, kind of, in a way. And I think that it like right now, I'm just working on giving that as much respect as I possibly can.
Right. But people don't see the art form. People just think that a funny guy gets up and tells his life story. There's actually an art form. With like your act, for example.
Uh-huh.
I mean, before this, I went back and watched some of your old stuff, and so I was like, that's crazy, because she's not really like that in person. Like, you know what I mean? It's
Right, and also, like, I look at some of my stuff that I did earlier on in my career, was almost like a different persona than
Right.
actually what I've grown into, like, later on now.
Right.
There was different, I was coached in a certain way, and,
Right.
the act, I think, was like, it was more of a character,
Right.
and it was stylized, and I did that intentionally.
Right.
But then as life matured, and in a way, I actually ended up becoming an activist.
Right.
And then I started to speak my mind in a different way that came from something else,
Right.
other than trying to create an act that I thought was going to get me a sitcom on television.
Right. You saw more into the industry. What kind of stuff are you doing right now?
Well, right now I've gone into what we call the truth media, or the alternative media, or now sometimes they call it the alt-right.
The alt-right.
I don't know how that happens.
Right,
it's like,
right,
I go,
right.
what do you mean? We're alt-right? Like, what's going on here? I don't understand,
Alternative media, yes, I've
Right.
heard that term being used over and over again.
Yeah, it started with cannabis,
Right.
but see, comedy led me to the activism,
Okay.
because it started with Jeffrey Peterson, the 420 comic.
Yes.
And he approached me. I was working out of we were affiliated with the Ice House Comedy Club in Pasadena.
Ice House, been
And
there
he
several
said,
times.
do you want to do a 420 show? So we decided to call it the Dope Show, but it really was about marijuana.
Right.
And in that experience, I started to see what was going on politically with it, and the restrictions that some dispensaries were getting shut down,
Right.
and the whole hypocrisy of it. Also, I witnessed the shutdown from the mainstream media, meaning radio, and stuff like that, and allowing you to promote it or allow their guests to actually be on a show. So some incidents happened where I voiced my opinion about that to the papers, and it kind of, which was a weird thing for me to do, because I never really took any stance like that before.
Right.
But I was just, hey, well, if And a friend of mine just told me, like, I Googled it and like I found, because the internet, and I go, oh yeah, it is true. Like the state of Oregon was the first state to decriminalize marijuana in 1973. Okay. And they were being really like Clear Channel had to stick up its ass, right? And wouldn't let their host be on the dope show that we're going to do at the Baghdad Theater on 420. I mean,
right.
Totally awesome. You know, classic rock station that does detoxification commercials. You know,
right.
Everything they're in, right?
Yeah.
No, that's not really what happened. They shut us down, and this whole thing happened. And so that tipped off some controversy. And then in the middle of all that, I was in a raid by the DEA and the and the FBI. I was held at gunpoint and handcuffed. Okay, the guy next to me gets hogtied, and I'm like, wow, that ruined bondage for me forever. And I end up, going through this raid by the, there was a dispensary. There's a doctor's office and then the dispensary, and the dispensary got raided. They ran into our room. We're like, what the hell are you doing in here? And I ended up, being, basically handcuffed, interrogated by the DEA. And then afterwards, they shook my hand and they go, good luck in your comedy career. And I go, thanks for giving me 30 minutes of new material. I really appreciate it. And so that's what I said. Yeah. And then I went, that day I was supposed to be calling the Pasadena Weekly, because they wanted to do an article along with the Willamette Weekly that was up in Oregon, and I was supposed to go there today, and they go, get here immediately, and I'm all right. And I go in, and so then after that, I ended up on the cover of the Pasadena Weekly, my hometown, where I've been living most of my life as an adult when I left my home from Fresno. And it's got the American flag behind me and the words of bongloads of justice and how a DEA raid turned me into a missionary for medical marijuana. So I was like, what the hell just happened right now? I don't understand. And I'm blowing smoke in the air. And and I wasn't really, like, when it came to marijuana, I sort of had like, yeah, it should be legal, no big deal. I would smoke it at a party maybe, or one time I was like, rocking out, like, I was in, I don't know, some place on the Sunset Strip. I think like the drummer of the Sting or whatever, he owns the place, and some dude like passes me a joint down the stairs, and I puff it down and go, yeah, you move it on down. I mean, like, those are just experiences, right. I didn't really think, I voted for it, for medical marijuana. One thing happened to me when I was in that raid, and I was handcuffed, and I was looking around. I was just looking around, and for a minute I was like, what the hell's going on in my life? Like, why is this happening, Right. And I really felt like, for some reason, I go, no, I'm supposed to see this. Right. This isn't an accident. Right. And then, I thought to myself, I thought, how did it get this bad? Because it's because of the oppression that, to me, I was like, what, I voted for this and I'm innocent and I didn't do anything wrong, so why do you have a gun pointed at me? Right. It was really offensive to me. Yeah. And I think that we're living in a time in our country where we're concerned, our rights are very important. Like, our freedom of speech is still, like, you talk about Lenny Bruce. I mean, Lenny Bruce, he basically lost everything because he was saying things that he was getting arrested for. He was getting arrested for speaking, all right? And that's very important. I mean, like, when you see people who go and fight the First Amendment, like, okay, look at Larry Flint, yeah, it's porno, but we have the right to do porno because I live in America,
right.
It's like, I mean, God bless the First Amendment and Larry Flint. We're talking about words, and we're talking about concept and ideals, and those things create our reality. So if you put any restrictions on those people, yes, you have to allow Donald Trump's annoying tweets or whatever. I mean, maybe Twitter wants to be an asshole because they are, but I mean, how bad is it when you get kicked off of like social media? Like, you are so awful, you cannot do 40 characters on our platform anymore, and everybody knows it. Right. It's like. But it's still, it's a big issue. I think it's an issue right now when you're looking at the press, when you're looking at people going, this is fake news, this is real news, it really gets, blurred around. And, comedy actually has a spot in the middle of all that craziness.
Yeah, you know what comedy does, man? It expands people's minds to make them think about other things. And I think that's great what you're doing with the comedy and then this activism. You mentioned to me that you got something going on this weekend in Vegas.
Right, yeah. Actually, I'm going to the Cannabis Cup, actually, in Las Vegas. I believe it's the first Cannabis Cup since legalization happened, which was this last election. Right. And I'm doing a stand-up comedy show. Jeffrey Peterson and I, who started the Dope Show together, are now doing a show there.
That's awesome.
And it's going to be on the 4th. It's this Saturday coming up, and I'm really excited. I'm going to be doing also my own sort of like I have Freedom of Joyce Media. That I do a radio show called Freedom of Joyce. It's on American Freedom Radio and True Cat Radio, and I'm going to be doing. I do like sometimes a little man on the street kind of. I'm going to be covering it on Facebook on my live stream too as well.
That's just awesome.
And everything, and hopefully meet some really cool people. And I have VIP. I have VIP pass. You know what I mean? I get to go I'm gonna have the full experience.
That's so awesome. Yeah. I wish I could be there. I got some other engagements, but I wish I could be there. But what I will be doing is watching your live feed on Facebook.
So
great. I'll be really excited for that. In this video description, I'm going to put all of Tere Joyce's information below, her contact information, all that good stuff, and also links to her radio show. I have to ask you one more question. What kind of advice can you give someone out there that might be, in high school or maybe in college and just kind of wants to get into the entertainment business and mainly stand-up comedy? What kind of advice can you give that person to get started?
If you're talking about the entertainment industry per se, or like being a stand-up comedian, I think the main thing is to remember is to be an artist. It's being an artist, and it's the real in the moment contact with the audience that's the most important. Or even if it's a radio show or however, it's a creation. And it's a very powerful creation. The entertainment business, in some ways, is very powerful. It creates the way people think. Sometimes it creates false history.
Yes, it does.
You know what I mean? It's like, there's a lot of things. The entertainment industry doesn't always necessarily have an honest agenda. They are not necessarily there to help promote the better of humanities. I've always thought that art, whether it be music or comedy or a script or all of those things, sometimes it's almost religious in a way. It's spiritual. Maybe that's the right word. Actually, religion came out of. Plays came out. It came from theater. The theatrical performance of something, whether it be comedy or whatever. Always to remember to have integrity in it. I wish that people have integrity in it. Yes. It doesn't matter, how famous you are, but realize now with social media and the technology that we have, what you say could have an imprint for years, because of the fact that we're not beholden to a mainstream industry anymore. And so just believe in yourself and come and work from the heart, because right now people need the heart. They need to have the realness, and stand-up comedy is one of the most real art forms that can communicate. Oscar Wilde said, the only way to tell the truth and not be assassinated is to be funny. and so go on and do it.
I grew up just watching stand-up comedy. I love comics. You can tell when a stand-up comic is really coming from the heart, from the work that they're putting out. I admire your work, and I want to thank you for being on the Super Jaymze show. You guys really need to follow this lady. She is funny as hell, and she's really entertaining to watch. Thanks for watching the Super Jaymze show. We're out. Deuces.